Welcome everyone to the chat with our global friends, and we are Friendly Water for the World. Typically we would start with our mission and vision, which I don't have in front of me. David, do you know it by heart?
No, I don't.
You don't?
But I could drag it up.
I'll bring it up at the end. How about that?
Okay.
So every chat we've done so far, well, first let me thank all of you for joining and taking some time out of your day to connect with us. And we have been running these chats now. I believe this is our 7th chat. Every Friday at noon Pacific Standard Time. So you want to come back next week or the week after that, we have them scheduled out through May, and we should have some through June as well, I believe, and then we'll go from there. But it's been a great way, to kind of share some information, but far more importantly, for us just to connect with people and just to say hi and see how folks are doing. And I just realized I'm talking without my video on. There I am. Sorry, I didn't get to share my cats and dogs with you. And so this chat is a little different than the last ones we've done because I deliberately set it up for folks just to share and just to talk about what's happening in their communities. I reached out to some of the people who live in the countries where we have our projects and asked if they wouldn't mind talking about the coronavirus or in their community and their family and just kind of what day-to-day life is. The idea here is not for this conversation to be led by me. It's if you have a question, feel free to ask somebody. If you're curious about something, feel free just to speak up, or if you just want to share something about your own local community and how it compares to anybody else. So just an opportunity to really kind of embrace what this is called, and that's a chat. So we can chat. I was hoping, Eric, if you wouldn't mind kind of kicking us off and talking a bit about, you already have just in a second there talking about the flooding, but just talking a bit about kind of what's going on with you and your community and Kenya as a whole. Eric? Did I lose Eric? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah. I want to thank all for joining us in this particular discussion, and I'll share briefly about what's happening in Kenya currently. We had the first case in Kenya that was reported in mid-March this year. And when we got the first case of the COVID-19, the government decided actually to announce curfew within the country. And this curfew runs from 7 p.m. up to 5 a.m. in the morning. All citizens are to stay indoors within this particular time. And after the outbreak also, this curfew actually was announced for 21 days. And on completion of the first 21 days, the government announced another extra 21 days also for the curfew. We have also experienced, after the government announcing this particular curfew, we have confirmed some cases of police brutality and use of excessive force by our security agencies, whereby we had some of the people being killed by the police when the police were trying actually to force people to stay indoors. They used excessive force, and we had some people dying as a result of the police using excessive force to keep people in their houses. Also, the government has actually decided all schools and institutions have been closed. Most people, the school children are at home, they are not going to school. Most government offices are also closed. All government and private offices are closed. and people have been advised to stay at home. You'll find that there are about 3 cities that are under complete lockdown, and this is in Nairobi and Mombasa. The 2 cities, Nairobi and Mombasa, is a complete lockdown. Nobody is allowed to enter and leave Nairobi currently. The same applies to Mombasa. Once you're in Mombasa, you're not allowed to get in, you're not allowed to get out. Another city that has been affected by the same is Mandera, on the border of Kenya and Somali. That one is also under complete lockdown. The cases of COVID-19 keep on rising. As by this evening, we had only, the cases so far reported was 621, but they keep on rising. And the problem we're experiencing currently is that I think for the last 21 days, people have stayed in their houses for quite a long time. And as you know, most people in Kenya, they rely on their source of income is when they work. When people are not working, they're not having any source of income. So you'll find that people seem to feel that the first 21 days was quite a long time, and they've been added another 21 days. So they feel that it's really getting a toll on them. They're finding that living is becoming quite difficult because people have been told to stay indoors, and there's not enough food supply. There are no basic needs for these particular people. So life is just becoming difficult for most Kenyans actually. And we have got reported cases whereby people who have been quarantined have even gone into depression. There was a case which was reported of a mother who, for lack of food, murdered her 2 children. And she tried also to commit suicide because the children had asked for her to get them food, and she was unable to get them food. So she decided to murder those 2 children and tried also to kill herself. Another challenge that we're experiencing in Kenya is that people who have been confirmed positive of this deadly virus are placed under quarantine at their own cost. It's making actually difficult for people to come out willingly to be tested, because once you are told that if you are tested and you are found to be positive, you are placed under quarantine under your own cost, and it's very expensive. Most people are not actually affording to meet this cost of being in quarantine at their own cost. So people are avoiding actually to go even for that voluntary testing. We also, the government is also lacking. We don't have the personal protective equipments that has further complicated this particular matter. So it complicates the case. And we have a case that has been reported of people who have been in quarantine escaping from the facilities by scaling the walls. So as a country, we are affected. People have lost jobs. People have been laid off. There's food shortage. And the COVID-19 pandemic in Africa has become even more sophisticated with the current floods that are being experienced in Africa. People have been displaced with no food, housing, and other basic needs, making social distancing quite difficult. The test from floods is higher than test from COVID-19, and the malaria has just become rampant. This case has further been complicated also by the outbreak of the Tessar locusts, which has affected also the supply of food for many Kenyans, and people are just having challenges. They don't know what to do, and we are hoping that maybe in the near future that this thing will be brought under control, though we don't know when. But for us families, we've been advised by the family by the government to make sure that we practice social distancing so that we can help the government to in its work of trying to control the spread of this particular virus. So that's what we are experiencing in Kenya currently. And we are there waiting. We don't know until when this will be brought under control.
Eric, do you find in your community that people are staying inside? Are they following those rules?
There are very few people who are actually following those rules, because as I said, most people in Kenya are low-income earners, people who maybe depend on daily income. And then for somebody like that, if you tell them to stay indoor for even 2 days, it becomes difficult for them to earn a living. So you find that there are very few actually who are staying indoors, but most people actually go against these particular rules. Like I said, Nairobi is under complete lockdown. But if you go in Nairobi now, life is like it's becoming back to normal. And you see the spread of the COVID-19 is much higher in Nairobi. So people are not sticking to the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
People have to eat.
Exactly.
Pardon?
I'm just saying people have to eat. And so it's a hard thing to ask people to go without eating.
Yeah, because you are said you are told to stay indoors, and yet you don't have what to eat. So people decide to get out.
So this is a very, Eric, this is a very Western question, but
yes.
For a lot of people here, if we don't have food, we can pick up the phone and we can have food delivered to our house. I'm assuming that's not happening where you are.
That's not happening where we are. Like the place where I am is on the western region of Kenya. Those services, you cannot find them. And such as services, you can find them in cities like Nairobi. But even if those services are there, they are very expensive than even the food itself. So people may not even use that particular service. So those services, for now, they're not there. Yes.
Eric, are people who have gardens able to work them, or are they strictly confined within the house?
Pardon, can you come again?
Yeah, people who have gardens, are they allowed to go out and work the garden, or do they have to stay actually in the house?
No, you don't have to stay actually in the house throughout. What they say is they encourage actually that social distancing. But like for my case, I'm staying in my own home. If I have any work within my own home, I just go ahead and do it. Like today, I was actually weeding my corn. So I went out and did the weeding of my corn. It's not strictly that you have to stay inside completely, but they're discouraging this idea of people moving from one area to another.
Thank you.
Yes.
Most people have gardens. Is that something that's common to the majority of people, or just a small percentage of people?
Kenya is an agricultural country. And for most people in rural areas, they own pieces of land. So they'll do most of the gardening. But if you get in the towns, people do not own land over there. It's specifically residential. But once you get the rural setup, people actually do gardening, do farming, and Kenya, the issue of ownership of land is very key. In fact, most of the challenges we face in the country is because of the issue of ownership of land.
If I might interject, to make sure we understand the difference between gardening and agriculture. Agriculture and farming is something that's out away. You have to walk to your fields that's farther away, coming up to a kilometer, even farther, to work on a half acre or an acre. But a garden is something, you know, a small place right around the home.
Something.
You know, 5 by 5 meters at most. That's a big garden. So, Andrea, you asked about you know, the gardens. We have got to be careful not to confuse the two. Garden and agriculture are very, very different things.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you are right. You are right, Peter. Because when you mention gardening, you are just mentioning about maybe a small piece of land just within where you're staying, maybe just next to your house. But when you mention farming, we are talking about some big farms whereby maybe thousands of acres of land specifically set aside for farming. Thank you, Peter, for coming in for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is what colleagues of mine who are in Rwanda right now talking about the flooding that's hit that mountain country severely, as has hit Kenya. And they're saying that agricultural crops have been destroyed, homes, bridges, roads. But those who have had gardens also got washed away. The difference being that a garden can be rebuilt within a day, and you can get cowpea and amaranthus and collard greens growing again within a day of a garden, but not so with an agricultural field or a road or a bridge, those kinds of things. So something about what we all try to teach is this process of how do you create a garden again. The garden may wash away, but did people learn the process of how to create, assess, and capture their resources, and then recreate the garden all over again? And you can get up and running within a day and a half once the floodwaters have receded.
Peter, I think this depends on the location whereby these particular farms we are talking about are, because you'll find like for farms that are in areas that are quite slopey, once it rains, you find that even if it is a very big farm, once we have that runoff of the floods from the hilltop going downwards, it can clear an entire piece of land, and you find that you just have to redo it after the rains.
That's right. And you can't, those situations, agricultural fields, acre on a hillside, take years to recover, years, decades. What I'm saying is a garden can take a day and a half to recover. Once the flooding has receded, once you've done the response, you've recovered, then you can rebuild. A garden can be rebuilt. Agricultural hillsides, mountains, roads, bridges, that takes decades, and it takes a whole different type of response. So I think with friendly water and same with water systems, you can't bring a whole new town water supply back online within a little while, but if you have a biosand water filter and it falls over in the flood, you pick it back up, clean it out, guess what? You're up and running within a day. And that's the beautiful thing about these small technologies, which I think we're all interested in talking about, whether it's gardening or biosand filters, rocket stoves can be moved and can be rebuilt and can help people in that recovery and rebuilding phase once we dealt with the response, the medical response. It gives people a good advantage to help in that next phase. How do we move on from here? Once the disaster has happened, whether it's a flood, whether it's COVID, whether it's malaria, HIV was the same thing. How do we respond? That's how the true nature of an organization and all of us as individuals can come out. We're not first responders. We are, though, recovery and rebuilding.
That's especially true after floods. The floods recede, and as Eric noted, leaves behind malaria, but also typhoid in particular.
And cholera can be horrifying.
Right. And those are easy for biosand filters. We know how to stop those.
That's right. I think it's important to acknowledge the horror of the disaster, but also to then come back and say, okay, but here's how we recover. Here's how we rebuild. Agriculture is going to be struggling. If you're relying on tractors and irrigation systems, that's gone. Those roads and bridges to get your crop to market, that's gone. That'll take decades to rebuild. A garden, food on the table, a couple of weeks. Biosand filter, clean water, fix it again, you've got clean water. Can we rebuild the house? No. Can we provide water systems? No. Can we provide clean water and good food? Yes. And that's an important distinction for all of us to understand.
Thank you, Peter. Does anybody else have questions for Eric?
On that note, Eric, can you talk to us at all about what the situation of getting people biosand water filters is right now? And apologies if you all are on top of that. And
yeah, I was almost. Yeah, I was.
Eric, are you having connection issues?
I didn't get your question clearly, but I've heard you mention about the biosand water filters. Is an idea that I wanted us to discuss here.
Yes, please. That's what I was wondering about. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that that's what I was coming to, because you know, we are talking about people being displaced, and when they're displaced, like we are people who are now living in makeshift camps, which do not have actually basic needs. It means that these people have been displaced. Actually, number one, apart from what I said about lack of food, it means that the water they are using is not very clean, it's contaminated water. I want to tell you this frankly, from the African perspective. You know, we are talking about people who have been displaced. First of all, they do not have food, they do not have shelter, and it becomes quite a challenge for us. Like when we say we want to take just a water filter to such a people, their basic need first is food, and then the filter can come in. But we have some other organizations like in Kenya, we have what we call is a church organization under those who know the Quaker Church. They call it Friends United Meeting, is coming up with an emergency relief whereby they'll be providing some food supply to those who have been affected by these floods. I'm trying to look at the possibility of coming to work together with Friends United Meeting, so that when Friends United Meeting will be taking the emergency relief in form of food to these particular people, then we can coordinate with them so that when they go along with the food, we can carry along also a water filter for these particular people. But you just carry a water filter itself minus food, it may not achieve the purpose. So the basic need first is food, and then the water filter comes second.
That sounds like a great opportunity.
Yes.
Godfrey, I was wondering if you, seeing we're right next door to Eric, well, not right next door, but Tanzania is right next door. Would you mind sharing a bit about what's going on in Tanzania?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, currently from Tanzania, we have the latest news about COVID-19 in Tanzania. We had some cases for 480 reported cases and 16 deaths and 167 recovered. But there is another thing which this news are far back few days, due to the fact that a few days ago, Mr. President addressed the nation, and through his speech, he said that he was he sent some samples of animals and fruits to the National Health Laboratory, and those samples confirmed the post-corona positive. Therefore, there is a doubt with those equipments which are used to test for COVID-19. Therefore, the Minister of Health took a measure to set up a special committee of expertise to make an investigation on that equipment. Therefore, for about 3 to 4 days, no any updates about COVID-19 due to those investigation, and there is until now no report on that investigation. Therefore, apart from that, the president also ordered some that drink tonic, that what we call hebo tonic from Madagascar, and I think today, if not yesterday, the aeroplane went there, and the Minister of External Affairs was given, they call an aid. They're not bought, I think, an aid from Madagascar. Therefore, I think they will come back with those hebo tonic. I don't know I'm not sure if it works or not. But another thing, our normal life here, though since the first day the COVID-19 was reported, there is no lockdown or curfews, but schools and universities have been shut down since few weeks ago, or a month, I think. Apart from that, markets are open, public transport are open, but with some restriction. For instance, level seats, the public transport must be level seat. Also, with some instruction, for instance, social distancing on the street here. There are some people which are very hard to respond to those instructions from the Ministry of Health. For instance, currently with our fellow Muslims, they have this we call mfungo, Ramadan. Therefore, as our African culture together, some families I see, even where I stay near I stay, I see some families, they gather together to eat some, they call iftar. Therefore, you can see how the problem is critical. Therefore, we don't have some updates on COVID-19 for about some days. Another thing, there are some measures which have been taken by the government or Ministry of Health. For instance, today there is the Ministry of Health launched a call center, which will contain about 150 health expertise to provide some instruction or consultation. You can call the certain number which has been reached. Therefore, you can call to get some updates or any information about the ongoing problem. And other measures have been taken. Though I think the problem is about, I think, the free movement of people. There is high free movement of people. For instance, though it has been reduced, but I think it will lead to a negative impact due to the fact that other regions, the buses are free. There is free movement of people from one region to another due to the fact that there is no lockdown. But there are some instructions. But the government has invested much on providing education to the people through media, and sometimes there are some cars on the street advertising some precaution and some adverts being on some boards on the bus stops and other stuff like that.
So it sounds like the government is asking people to voluntarily do this, but how well do you think that's working?
Somehow it's working, but there are some people who are not. I don't think if it is refusing. I think it's. Some people are refusing to abide those advice and laws which has been announced by the government. But I think if we can get some update, we can see updates about when the committee has already settled down those problems on the laboratory, National Health Laboratory. We can see how the trend is going, and we can evaluate how is it working or not.
Is it easy for people to get tested?
Yes, somehow, but some I was seeing some people on social media that they say that we can't be tested because there's no patient, there's no need to be tested. But I think that is a negative mindset. But there are some people which are, it's free test, but there are some condition, I think, until you can go to the hospital and test, but I think the testing, it is not, the testing kits are not sufficient. I think that the problem was.
Do you have to pay to be tested?
No, it's free.
It's free.
Yes.
Does anybody have questions for Godfrey in Tanzania?
Do people still have access to clean water then for the most part?
Pardon, access to clean water, is it?
Yes, do people still have access to clean water?
Yes, because I'm not sure about the interior part of the country, but for where I'm staying, Dar es Salaam, which is the center here, or town, I mean, here we have access to clean water here in town.
Here.
Yes.
Godfrey, what would you say are the chief problems that people in your communities, both in the rural areas and the urban areas, what are, say, the top three problems in the rural areas and the top three problems in urban areas?
Pardon. Hello, pardon.
Yes, can you hear us, Godfrey?
I think
Yes,
he
yes,
needs to repeat. Yeah.
Yes. The question Chris was asking, if you could share kind of what you believe the differences between the problems that exist in the rural areas versus the problems that may exist in the urban areas. So the countryside versus the city, how are they different right now?
Currently, I've been in town for a while, though I have experience on the village also. I have experience on the village life. For instance, I stayed few back years. Stayed in Dodoma, which is the capital city, which is central part of Tanzania, of our country. In the rural areas, for instance, where I am from, there the big problem, the same applied. It's water. Access to clean water it's a problem. For instance, in the village where I was staying, some people uses, for instance, when it rains, they use the water which is sometimes on the road, flowing on the road. They use on cooking, sometimes drinking. You see, because they're on the central part of Tanzania, it is sometimes semi-arid. Therefore, during dry season, water it goes far on the ground. For instance, I remember there was an NGO back days. They had a project for almost 15 years. My father was one of the project coordinator in those villages. They tried. They also do. It is World Vision. They tried to solve that problem, though. I don't think if it succeeded to some percentage, because, for instance, I saw some many boreholes which they started and no water. Sometimes no water, or sometimes there is water but very salt water. You know, like those challenges in those villages. Therefore, the great problem there is access to clean water first. Apart from that, there is a common problem here in our country, or many African countries: urbanization, especially for youth. Youth are moving from villages to town areas. I don't think I think the great factor there, it's I think there is no favorable condition for them to do some work apart from agriculture, because even there is small scale agriculture, which I think many youth is here are not passionate about agriculture. I don't know why, but many youth is here. They run from villages and they come in town to do other businesses here. Yeah, therefore, urbanization.
Agriculture isn't very sexy. The way it's done on the fields, slamming against the hard soil every day. If it's made more interesting and innovative and value-added processing and smaller, and that's more exciting. That could be a way forward. But agriculture as it's currently done, kids don't want to be part of that.
Well, there's another, this is Ginny, there's another side of it too. The population's growing in Tanzania, and the youth, the land out in the rural areas only supports so many people at a certain point. So there's been migration of young adults who've been educated trying to move into the cities to look for more opportunity, and it's a structural issue within the economy. They don't really have a market or a industrial economy to support yet the population that's migrating.
Right. So the education system is encouraging technology, high tech, getting into more first world oriented job market, but the infrastructure in Tanzania is not there to support those kind of jobs.
Well, and it's an educating, I mean, the youth are being educated. That's one of the benefits of Tanzania is they have a pretty powerful educational system to train children through middle and through year 2 or college, high school equivalency. So then you end up with a population that has capacity to do things and a land base. They're living longer. They're not losing as many children in childbirth. So you have a population on the land that may not be
sustainable,
fully supportable. Yeah.
You also have land encroachment up in the northern corners, Mara region. British American Tobacco cut a deal maybe 10 years ago with the government, and they've enclosed huge amounts of land for tobacco farming. And of course, that depletes the soil massively, and not that many workers are needed. So what had been subsistence agriculture on much of this land, able to support many more people, is now tobacco for the international market.
Well, I wanted to make sure we got some folks from India on the call as well. So thank you, Godfrey, so much for sharing about Tanzania. And also, I don't think I thanked Eric for sharing about Kenya. I really appreciate it. That was a great update. I was wondering if, Binyamin, if you're available to give us
yes,
an update on what's happening in your part of the world.
yeah. Can you hear me?
We can. And where,
Okay.
and of course, where are you, and what part of India are you in?
I'm Binyamin, and I'm based in Lucknow, which is northern India, close to Delhi. Actually, I am from Gujarat, which is Ahmedabad, which has highest cases now after Mumbai. And I moved here, I think 17 years ago, and since then I'm living in Uttar Pradesh, Lucknow. Right now, I think India is having nearly 58,000 cases, and probably nearly about 1,900 people died. This is our 45th or 46th day of lockdown. Our Prime Minister announced lockdown on 24th March. This was all of a sudden. On the 24th March, I think there were 500 cases, or not even more than that. And he announced all of a sudden. And so the people, those who work as a migrant workers or laborers in the different states or different cities or different areas, they are stuck there, and that has become a big issue right now, because all the trains, flights, buses, everything is. Hello.
Yeah. Sorry, Benjamin, we've just got some. There we go.
Okay. Yeah. All the buses and the trains, flights, and even the public transport, everything is shut down not only from outside of the India, but even within the country. And so due to that, many migrant laborers started walking back their home, and many of them died on the road. I think there are 600 accident happened during these days. So the roads are empty. but 600 incident of people dying, or people are seriously ill, or people are dehydrated and all this kind of thing. And so that is what right now the issue is. For poor, the lockdown means no food, no work, because since 45 days you don't have work. And I'm talking about daily wage laborers, those who earn every day and survive. And for them, surviving 45 days without work, it's without food, and it's so difficult for them. I called to one of our worker lady, and I asked her how she is managing. So she was saying that she has few kilo rice, and so every day she puts one bowl rice in the vessels and fill with the water, and she boils that, and then she's serving that to children. And so children are basically drinking that water. I mean, this is in UP and Bihar, and so sad situation. It's very difficult. And the United Nations in 2019 mentioned in the Multidimensional Poverty Index (MPI) that there are 369 million poor in India, and they live on less than a $1.9 a day. Can you believe, less than a $1.9 a day? And that is what we are talking about. This is the community. What the situation it makes so grim is that at least 380 million people, which is more than the population of United States, are employed in informal sector. Informal sectors are means they are daily wage laborers. They work daily wage in agriculture, they work daily wages in construction, they work daily wages in other industries, and this is ILO report. I mean, this is International Labor Organization and Indian government statistics source. And so there is a huge crisis. The COVID-19 is there and is affecting people, but then more than that, the poverty, and more than that, the hunger is affecting people. I called one lady, and I was explaining her that you should wash and 20 second, 30 second, and you should wash properly this way, that way. After I explained her for a few minutes, she was telling me that I don't have food to eat. So this hand wash or this hand sanitizer is not going to save me, because I don't have anything to eat. So I'm not going to die because of COVID-19, but I'm definitely going to die because of poverty and hunger. So this COVID-19 has a major challenge, but then it has become the hunger and the poverty has become the major challenge. However, with this all the crises, it also brings opportunity, and opportunity for NGOs and for people like us to help fellow Indian. And so since last 2 months, many of us are involved in distributing the groceries to the poor people. And I am working right now among 4 communities. One is the Pasi community, which are pig rearing community. They raise pigs and then they sell it. Second is the Valmiki community. They are basically manual scavenger community. They clean the toilets, dry latrines. They sweep the street. They go in a manhole and clean those dirt everywhere there without any proper, mask or proper clothing or proper necessary things. And so the Valmiki, another one community that I'm involved with is a nut. They are the street performance, street dancers. And another one we are working with are the chamar. They are the one who removes the skin of dead animal, And so these are 4-5 communities, and of course Gihar is one. These are the communities that I'm working with, and we were able to distribute grocery kit to the poor and needy. Among this, many of them are widow, many of them are physically challenged. And so about 130 people we were able to identify and help them with the grocery kits of like 1,000 rupee, which is like about 14 to 15 US dollar. And each kit contains rice, wheat, sugar, salt, oil, and all those necessary things, spices, and all those things that they need, as well as soap and face mask. Because here is compulsory, the face mask is compulsory if you want to come out, to buy anything or to go out in your own field to work, you have to have face mask. And so my organization is running tailoring schools, where in the village we are teaching tailoring sewing classes to the women. And so I approached them, I asked them to stitch 2,000 plus face masks so that we can distribute them to the poor and needy. And so along with these grocery items, we were able to distribute, and those women, they are distributing in their own village free of cost. And so this is how the opportunity for us to reach out to them and help them. And so most of the widow and most of the physically challenged people, most of the orphans, migrant workers, and some old people. And so we were able to reach out to them and help them in this time of trouble. And so that's what basically I'm doing. And we have many more people are calling me and asking for the help. We are limited with the resources. And so I'm still trying to raise some funds so that we can reach out to them and help these people. Because I think the lockdown is extended till 17th of May, but I think it seems like it may go more than a May. I mean, it may go up to June. And so in the rural areas, in the villages, people are finding difficulties. There is no job in the rural area, so that's why they migrate to the cities in the search of job. And so now they are coming back from the cities because cities are locked down. Nothing is working. The factories are shut down and all those things. And so it's a big crisis for the migrant worker, daily wage laborers. And they're a big number. And I think, it's a big challenge. Government somehow is unable to help them. The government in India is basically helping to the business people, the business community, but not to the poor people right now. And so the poor also are struggling because there's not big help coming from government. Government can do much bigger way, but I think the policies are not so good, and so they are not able to help these people. And that's the condition right now in India. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a fantastic update. Does anybody have questions for Binyamin? David does, but David's muted.
Binyamin, what is happening with the 100 Days Food for Work program? Is that completely suspended?
Yeah, that was actually Congress, the previous government program. And so this Prime Minister, even in the Parliament, he himself criticized that program, saying that it is a monument of their failure. And so, he is not giving so much attention to that. And so the funds is not been released to that. And so there is the program is there, but then it's not helpful for the people. In some areas, people are getting some work, but then in most of the areas, people are not getting anything.
Okay.
In fact, today, I think 16 of them were walking on the railway track, returning from Maharashtra to, I think, MP. And the train ran over them, and I think 16 of them died. 20 of them were walking back because everything is shut down, and so they just thought that we'll walk by the railway track and we will reach there. But they thought that trains are closed, trains are not running, and so nothing will happen. And they were walking, I think, in the middle of the track, and I think some goods train run over them, and so that was a sad incident. This is today's afternoon story. Yeah.
Any other questions for Binyamin? Well, thank you so much for sharing. And we are just right about on time for our 1 o'clock close. I want to thank everybody for joining today. I promised David that I would do the mission and vision before we leave, so I'm going to stay true to my word and remind everybody that our mission is to expand global access to low-cost, clean water technologies and information about health and sanitation through knowledge sharing, training, applied research, community building, peacemaking, and efforts at sustainability. And we do that to support our vision of a healthy, self-sustaining, empowered, peaceful communities, both here and abroad, sharing our knowledge with each other, with life and hope restored through clean water. And I did have that memorized. I wanted to invite everybody to join us again next Friday. I personally am very excited about our chat for next Friday. Just as excited as I was about this this chat today. We are going to have a guest speaker, John McLean, join us. He is the president of the Energy Efficiency Finance Corporation here in Olympia. He is a Yale grad and former adjunct professor at Evergreen State. He works and has worked extensively over the last 2 decades with the World Bank and other major international financial institutions. He's done a lot of recent work with the Green Climate Fund. I heard him speak not too long ago, and so I recruited him to join us because I think he has a really amazing perspective on climate change and climate resilience and the economics and financing behind that, and how some of these institutions like the Green New Deal and the Green Climate Fund have grown up. And I think it's going to give a pretty neat perspective on that kind of 30,000 foot view of where that stands, and how it also demonstrates the need for organizations like ours on the ground to provide more kind of local solutions. So please join in next Friday. That'll be a really, really great conversation. I hope everyone's looking forward to that. So David, do you have any last words?
Just that we're here, we're working. We are in, most of the work we're doing these days is planning. You know, we don't think this is going to last forever, and we'll come out of it stronger. We have lots of folks in India and in Africa and in Guatemala doing a lot of planning and surveying work for us now for future projects that are being hatched. We have, I think I said last week, we cut our budget by 46%, knowing that this is not going to be an easy time to raise funds, although people have been very generous, and we thank you all. We're always looking for more in the way of resources, and especially just as you come here every week, if every month you become a sustaining donor and give us a little bit every month, it'll help us get over the hump. So thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. I hope everyone has an amazing rest of your day and a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.